Welcome to Swords Explained. Today, we're exploring one of the most crucial yet often overlooked components of any sword, the hilt. That's everything below the blade, the pommel, grip, and guard. These elements weren't just decorative, they were essential for balance, protection, and combat effectiveness. Let's get started. Understanding the basics. A sword hilt comprises three primary components: the pommel at the base, the grip, or handle, in the middle, and the guard protecting your hand. While medieval swords typically featured straightforward crossguards, later designs became increasingly sophisticated, incorporating side rings, finger guards, knuckle protectors, and elaborate swept-hilt configurations. Pommel types. Let's begin with pommels, those distinctive knobs at the hilt's terminus. Beyond their aesthetic appeal, pommels served two vital functions: counterbalancing the blade's weight and functioning as an improvised striking implement in close combat. Court sword pommel. The classic rounded knob represents the most recognizable pommel style. Viking swords characteristically displayed triangular pommels, while medieval European swords favored spherical, wheel-shaped, or Brazil nut configurations. As we progressed through the late Middle Ages, pommel designs exploded into remarkable variety. L-shaped pommel. Certain swords, like the shamshir and kalij, showcase an L-shaped pommel, occasionally featuring a cord loop. Classic Persian shamshir examples can be discovered throughout Turkey, India, and various regions of the Islamic world. Dish-shaped pommel. The Indian talwar frequently exhibited a dish-shaped pommel along with an overall hilt adorned with exquisite traditional Indo-Muslim ornamentation. Most flat pommels also displayed decorative elements at the top. This style gained popularity during the early 1800s when the British East India Company expanded its dominion over most of India, with British officers acknowledging the sword's exceptional quality. Honored pommel. Some pommels took the form of animal heads, lions, eagles, and other creatures. These were prevalent in hanger swords and ceremonial blades. Richly embellished small swords became an essential component of a gentleman's attire, so pommel designs reflected their personal style and financial status. Grip types. Now let's examine the handles themselves. Early swords used wooden grips, though some featured leather wrappings twisted with brass wire. Indian swords typically had ivory grips, sometimes carved with outstanding craftsmanship. By the 1600s, Italian dress swords often showcased steel handles, usually pierced or chased. Handle lengths also varied considerably, depending on the sword type and its intended application. One-handed grip. Medieval knights arming swords featured one-handed grips, leading many to mistakenly label them as short swords to distinguish them from long swords that permitted two-handed use. But their blades weren't particularly short and sometimes matched the length of other sword types. Hand-and-a-half sword grip. Some swords fall between one-handed and two-handed categories. Fencing masters frequently called them bastard swords. Generally, the grip allows a wielder to use it with one hand plus 2 or 3 fingers from the other hand, hence the designation hand-and-a-half sword. Longsword grip. The defining characteristic of a longsword is its extended grip that enabled two-handed use, though it remained lightweight enough to wield single-handed. Since it served as a sidearm for armored combat, it was compact enough to be worn on the belt. Two-handed sword grip. Sometimes called great swords, two-handed weapons like the German Zweithander required both hands. Unlike longswords, they weren't light enough for single-handed use. Their exceptionally long grips allowed the wielder to use the weapon with both hands, with spacing between them. Pistol-style grip. The Ottoman saber, like the Persian kalij, typically features a distinctive pistol-style grip. The Mamluk warriors who descended from non-Arab slaves also wielded a similar saber, which inspired the Mamluk sword of the U.S. Marine Corps. If you're enjoying this deep dive into sword anatomy, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our weapon breakdowns. We've got tons more content coming your way. Guard types. The sword guard protected the swordsman from the opponent's blade. The crossguard represents the simplest form of guard known since ancient times. Throughout the 1300s, various modifications were applied to the quillons and crossguard arms, causing them to vary from region to region. Certain swords had quillons that curved toward the blade, while others curved toward the handle, though the latter proved impractical for hand protection. Eventually, sword hilts evolved, consisting of side rings, finger rings, knuckle bows, and other features. S-shaped quillons. Some 16th century swords featured crossguards extending forward and backward, forming the forward and rear quillons. The S-shaped quillons were common to hunting or hanger swords, named after how they hung from the belt. By the 1700s, these swords became standard military weapons in several armies. Side rings. Also called ring guards, side rings provided additional hand protection. They're positioned at the center of the crossguard on both sides. Scottish lowland swords, rapiers, two-handed swords, and some executioner's swords often featured ring guards. Finger guard. Sometimes referred to as the hilt's arms, finger guards allowed the wielder to grip the ricasso, the blade's unsharpened portion, while protecting their fingers. They were common features in thrusting swords like estocks and rapiers. They first appeared in transitional swords, shifting the hilt design from the classic crossguard to the rapier. Knuckle guard. A knuckle guard is a narrow metal strip curving over the length of the handle, protecting the swordsman's knuckles. Hunting swords, small swords, and some cavalry sabers often had knuckle guards. British cavalrymen used mixed swords, and some of their cut-and-thrust sabers featured stirrup-hilt knuckle guards. Basket guard. The basket guard provides superior hand protection and typically consists of bars, plates, and rings forming a cage around the sword handle. Early basket guards on broadswords were simple cut steel guards encircling the entire hilt. The Venetian broadsword, schiavona, meaning Slavonic, also features a distinctive basket hilt. Mortuary-style guard. The so-called mortuary sword features a basket guard that resembles the human rib cage. It usually featured portrait medallions, with some bearing the likeness of the executed King Charles I, hence their modern name. During the English Civil War, cavalrymen widely used these swords. Swept-hilt guard. In a swept-hilt design, the guard bars sweep upward in a curve from the ricasso to the pommel. Italian rapiers often had swept-hilt designs, usually with side rings, finger rings, knuckle bows, curving quillons, and other features. Fascinating hilt facts. Swords served as fundamental weapons for armies worldwide. By the end of the 10th century, swordsmiths laid the foundation for sword design for the next millennium. Protective sword hilts started appearing in Viking swords. Earlier sword hilts didn't serve protective purposes until the barbarian migration period. Viking swords have been classified based on their hilts. Swords from the Viking Age are relatively similar, but historians identify them based on hilt design. Archaeologist Jan Petersen established the typology of Viking weapons, including swords. However, different scholars may classify swords differently, making the typology somewhat subjective. Scabbards often matched decorative sword hilts. The Ottoman Empire kilij had scabbards specially adapted to its blade length and highly curved shape, usually with a slot in its back covered with sprung steel, making it easier to draw. Most of these swords had intricate blade decorations, and their scabbards featured similar motifs, sometimes matching the jewel decorations on the hilts. Swords with lavish hilts usually belonged to high-status warriors. Silver sword hilts with high-quality metalwork were common as officers' weapons. Some swords had imported blades and locally made hilts. Many swords have multiple places of origin. Most Scottish basket-hilted swords had German blades but were mounted with hilts in the lowlands, usually in Stirling and Glasgow. This was also true for the Highland claymore and lowland sword. Some daggers had hilts similar to swords. Early fencers used daggers for parrying with rapiers, often matching the chiseled steelwork of the sword. Certain swords can be distinguished by their hilt design. The Highland claymore is one of the swords with distinctive hilts, recognized for its quatrefoils at the quillinans. Other swords are distinguished by grip lengths, such as the arming sword and longsword, while others are based on blade construction, such as broadswords and rapiers. A note on Japanese sword hilts. Japanese swords have different hilt designs and construction. The tsuka, or handle, features several ornaments like the manuki and kashira. The latter is a decorative pommel cap at the end of the handle, yet doesn't function as a blade counterbalance. And there you have it, a comprehensive breakdown of sword hilts throughout history. Now I want to hear from you. Which hilt design was your favorite? And did we miss any hilt types you wanted to learn about? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you never miss our weapon breakdowns. We've got tons more content coming your way.